Yo guys, and welcome back for another Blue Protocol video. So it did come to my attention in the previous video that I made that there seems to be a misunderstanding when it comes to imagines. So let's talk about it. So I think this will help give a frame of reference for really understanding how imagines affect your ability score. So let's go ahead and start here. So this is my character right now with 0 imagines. So I have 16,921 ability score. And if we go and look at our skills here, you will see exactly as I said, I don't have any imagines equipped. Now, let's go ahead and try using a level 5 purple imagine. So I'm going to equip my level 5 Muku Scout here, and we'll see how that affects our score. And you'll see I went from 16,900 to 17,300. So that is roughly, 400 score. I'll put the actual number up on the screen, but roughly 400 something score, right? If we were to go and actually replace this with a yellow imagine, we will see that we'll go back again to establish our baseline. So a little bit more than 16,900. And then let's go ahead and equip our Arcana Crab here. And we go up to 17,219. So that is a little bit under the 300 score, ish. Again, I'll put the number up on the screen. The point being is that the level 5 purple imagine actually gives us more score. Now, there was a really common misunderstanding on my last video where a lot of people were under the assumption that a lot of the ability score that people were getting in their skill training that was different from mine was actually from the imagines. Now, if you paid attention to the previous chart, I'll put that up here. This should account for the majority of it, the vast majority of it, and that should have been fairly obvious. But it does seem like some people misunderstood what these numbers mean. So as the comments started flooding in on my last video, and it became more and more obvious that people were very unaware of how much ability score imagines actually give. So I felt like this needed a little bit of clarification. And yesterday while I was playing, I noticed somebody in World Chat that was advertising themselves as 22.4. And it kind of got me thinking, are people just going to assume that somebody at 22.5 at this point in the game, as of today of my recording, are they going to just assume that he has R5 imagines and that's that and just kind of shrug it off? Are they going to feel like that's unreachable? Are players going to feel like without R5 imagines, they'll just never be able to get high ability score? Well, I tried to answer that in my last video, but it wasn't convincing enough, it seems. Maybe there was some way that we could take a look at that. If you guys are liking the video, if you guys could like the video down below, subscribe to the channel. We are working towards 1,000 subscribers now. We did reach our 500 goal, and so now we're moving towards 1,000, which is the next goal, and I would greatly appreciate your support. I talked to Tyreal here, who ended up showing me by applying to the group that he was indeed 22.4. working on his way to 22.5, and I had the idea, what if I could get him to confirm this number for me by taking off his level 5 Frost Ogre Imagine. So this would basically give us an actual number that we could see for how much value an R5 Imagine is worth. So what you guys are seeing in the background right now is actually going to be a clip of Red doing the same thing. So I was able to get back in contact with Red and confirm and have him actually take off his imagine for me in a video so you guys can actually see the number changing. Both confirmed that you lose about 900 score in total by taking off an R5 legendary imagine. And again, we're not talking about replacing it, we're talking about just unequipping it and having nothing in that slot whatsoever. Again, I'll put the exact number on the screen here. This just goes to show that you don't get that much more from having a refinement 5 imagine. Now, yes, it is more than having a level 1 refinement yellow or legendary imagine. However, it's realistically not that much more than having a R5 purple imagine. Again, I'll do the math and show you guys on the screen above exactly how much score that is. So this does mean that a refinement 5 legendary is worth around 895 ability score in total. And our Muku Scout is worth 447 total, which means that roughly R5 yellow imagine, an R5 legendary imagine is worth only about double our purple imagine. And so you only get 448 score from going from an R5 Muku Scout going to an R5 like Muku Chief, for example. which means even if you have 2 R5 legendary imagines, you still get less than 1,000 score. You only get about 896 score more than somebody who's running 2 purple imagines. So this hopefully does a good job of showing that the extra, several thousand ability score difference was in fact the books and not the actual imagines. And as I had mentioned previously in the last video, red in our example was only actually using 1 yellow imagine anyway, which means that red was only getting about 448 more score from his actual imagines. So kind of what does that mean? And is a R5 refinement imagine worth it? It's really hard to say exactly how much, but it definitely would be over the course of the game for sure. But the point is that in terms of ability score, it's not that much of an increase. And in fact, if you're like me, I went from actually using an R5 Muku Scout to using a R1 Flyer. Now, for me, it was still a massive DPS increase, and that's because I needed the raw stat that the Flyer actually provides. So some classes might be different in how much they scale with things like raw stats versus things that they need like just additional attack power, right? For me, losing score going down to the R1 version of this legendary imagine, which by the way only provides about 298 score. I actually lost score for going from the Muku Scout to that Flyer. But again, for me, it was a significant damage increase, and that has to do with the class that I play. I needed more haste to get closer to this haste cap that I need to be able to do more damage. It's just, again, part of my class and understanding how this class works. But if you don't know, you can always test it on testing dummies or test it yourself in dungeons, etc. And also, probably worth mentioning that the haste just feels really, really good. So ultimately, you might be one of those classes that doesn't want to actually do what I did and run 2 yellow imagines, and you can benefit from the ability score. A lot of classes, I think, want to specifically run the Muku Scout even longer because it does have good effects, and you will get that extra ability score as well. But this also means that if you were to whale and you wanted to get a R5 refinement crab or an R5 refinement flyer or whatever, you're not necessarily going to be getting a ton of extra score. So if you're whaling for ability score, this is not the best place to spend your money. I do think personally that this is the best place to spend your money for power. And the reason behind that is because of this. Right now, I would say the best place for getting ability score if you're going to whale would be books. However, you get 25 books guaranteed every single week just for logging in basically and playing the game a little bit. So I don't think that I would actually recommend somebody whaling out for books right now if they didn't want to, or if they had relatively limited amount of spending that they could. In that case, it might be better to try and work for a Muku Chief or something like that that is better for your actual damage, and then go ahead and let the books get your ability score raised over time. And one last thing, guys, I really want to start pushing this idea that we should never gatekeep based on ability score. I think it's actually a lot more valuable if you do things like look at someone's mastery score, because if you can see they have a total mastery score of like around 2,000. It does mean that they're at least a relatively competent player. Now, it's always possible that they had friends or something run them through, but you don't know how they're inflating their ability score. And that was the whole reason why I made the last video. We were trying to analyze how people were getting such high scores so quickly, even though we didn't have a ton of access to materials yet, and we still don't, right, in terms of books, which ended up being the key factor there. But if you were to go in and look at someone's mastery score, I do think it's going to provide a lot more insight. And also, I haven't had a chance to do this one dungeon yet, so forgive me for now, but it's going to give you a lot more insight into their actual progression in the game or any detail about their ability score, because they might be playing a class like mine who just doesn't get that much ability score from leveling up their skills. If you're forced to level up that basic attack skill, and again, this is one of the things I wanted to really bring attention to, if you're forced to level up skills like your basic attack skill here, you're going to be falling further behind somebody who doesn't have to, somebody who could just do their expertise skills, or they could do their special skill or their ultimate. Any of these things here are going to give you more value than something like your basic attack, but there are classes that are forced to do that for damage. So For reference, I out DPS pretty much everyone I come across, whether they be 18,000, 19,000, or approaching 20,000 or whatever. I haven't grouped with anyone higher than 20,000, but the point being is that I'm competitive with all of these people, even though I'm only at 17.5. So the fact that somebody has 2,000 ability score on me does not mean that they're going to out DPS me. And in fact, I've out DPS several people in the 19,000s by more than 20% of their damage. So if we're going to look at people's numbers and we're going to be comparing that and trying to figure out who we should bring to parties and stuff like that, let's start doing it based on their mastery score. Let's have the community go through and do the content, show that they're playing the game and not just spending money on books to inflate their score artificially. Everyone should be going through and doing this stuff and working on it, getting their score up, and then that's how we should get people into lobbies. Don't believe ability score. Ability score is not important. Because to be frank, I don't know if you guys have done some of the current level 5s to get something higher than like a 316. If you've achieved it, if you're just working towards it, if you've been progging it, you need good damage to get through. Having somebody carry you does not seem possible. I've not come across any DPS person in any of my groups that would be capable of carrying a just dud through a level 5 master mode dungeon right now. If you made it through a level 5 master mode dungeon, it means that you're doing something right. You're on the right track. And that's why we should be bringing those players to lobbies instead of just people who have high ability score. Look at the accomplishments people make in game, not just the accomplishments that they have for their ability score. I want to thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys so much for the support. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully this helped explain some things, and also maybe why, if you are going to spend money, you should spend money in different places than you might think, depending on what your goal is. If you guys like the video, leave the video a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. If you guys are watching this after I post the video, feel free to come hang out on Twitch. I'm always streaming there pretty much from 8 p.m. PST to like 4 in the morning. We're grinding raids and dungeons and getting geared and working on all of our characters, maybe even starting a legitimate 4th, 5th, and 6th character soon. We'll see. I don't really know. We'll see. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you guys there, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.